You're a slave to the Russians! You couldn't find anything for yourself in Uzbekistan. So you came here?
Tashkent is breaking the leash. Uzbekistan is leaving Moscow's influence for good.
Is Uzbekistan preparing for war? A sudden statement from Tashkent.
Yes, friends, the nasty Kremlin brat wants revenge and is ready to start a war against his former ally.
The Russian Federation declared war on Uzbekistan and then instantly backed down again.
Hello friends, this is the Vova project. My name is Vladimir Timoshenko and let's get started.
Is Uzbekistan preparing for war? A sudden statement from Tashkent.
Well, President of the Republic of Uzbekistan Shavkat Miromonovich Mirziyoyev is right to prepare for war against Russia. This is how Uzbeks are hated supposedly in cultured Moscow.
Where did you come to? Where are you staying? Did you come here to work? Did you come here to work? Then work! Don't open it! You're a slave to the Russians! You couldn't find anything for yourself in Uzbekistan, so you came here. Did I say anything wrong to you? There's nothing in Uzbekistan, so you came here.
We'll discuss later how Uzbeks are oppressed in Russia. More importantly, Moscow has essentially declared war on Tashkent.
Putin has launched an operation in Uzbekistan, not military, but it is essentially a similar kind of expansion in a figurative sense.
So wait, what kind of expansion, you might ask? Just before the May 9th parade at that Victory Mania celebration in the Kremlin, the nasty little Putin and Mirziyoyev were chatting just as amiably. But that's only how it seems at first glance. Take a closer look at the expression on the Uzbek leader's face.
Dear Shavkat Miromonovich, I am truly and very glad to see you here today on the eve of this historic celebration of the great victory. The monumental victory of our common Soviet people in the long and difficult Great Patriotic War.
But why does Mirziyoyev look so tense? That's odd. Maybe he was afraid that on May 9th, the armed forces of Ukraine would strike Red Square. Then he shouldn't have flown to Moscow in the first place. And just recently, Mirziyoyev came to Russia again, this time to St. Petersburg, accompanied by the sound of Ukrainian drones.
We are truly grateful to you for taking the time out of your busy schedule and coming to us here in St. Petersburg to participate in the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum.
Although, in fact, you can understand the leader of Uzbekistan, that tension of his. After all, shortly before meeting with Putin in St. Petersburg, Russia started a war with Uzbekistan. So far it's a trade war.
Well, that's it. Russia is now declaring an economic war on its partner Uzbekistan. Following the pressure on Armenia, the Kremlin's Roselkosnadzor has taken on yet another country. Now it's Uzbekistan from Central Asia.
Very, very interesting. And what official pretext did Putin come up with? Are there at least some arguments? At least for the public, you know?
Moscow has banned the imports of fruits and vegetables from Uzbekistan, citing reported violations.
Phytosanitary standards.
Coincidence or not, but soon the US Deputy Secretary of State will arrive in Tashkent for a visit. If the Kremlin wanted to send a hint, then why did it back down? Or did Putin forget that Uzbekistan is actually an ally of the Russian Federation?
No, the Kremlin maniac definitely hasn't forgotten anything. He continues to put pressure on official Tashkent. He demonstratively summons Mirziyoyev to St. Petersburg and stages a showy ceremony for the start of construction of the first power unit of an integrated nuclear power plant in the Republic of Uzbekistan.
It's symbolic that we are launching this large-scale joint Russian-Uzbek project from here, from St. Petersburg, together with the President of the Republic of Uzbekistan, Shavkat Miromonovich Mirziyoyev.
Well, this is actually a very strange story overall. It's supposed to be a celebration for Uzbekistan, but Mirziyoyev is once again standing there emotionless like a mummy in some kind of incomprehensible state. And it's all just strange, I'll say it again, everything. Just imagine, technologically backward, Russia is setting up an online teleconference with Uzbekistan about the start of construction of their first nuclear power plant unit. What?
The very fact that Russia and Uzbekistan are implementing such a truly flagship, highly advanced technological project is a striking and powerful example of the deep friendship and alliance between our two countries.
In short, Skliafosovsky, the point here is absolutely something else. Behind these Putin ramblings lies real Kremlin expansion and a desire to rein in Uzbekistan. Now listen very carefully.
Here are the details. The plant is being built by Russia's Rosatom using Russian reactors, and Uzbekistan is covering 85 to 90% of the cost with a Russian preferential loan. Essentially, Russia is building an entire nuclear industry for its neighbor on credit, ensuring decades of dependence.
Yes, that's where the problem lies. And that's why Mirziyoyev stands and sits before Putin looking resigned, not saying a single word at all. In fact, Russia is making Uzbekistan its debtor with this nuclear power plant. It's not even certain that Tashkent needs this power plant at all. Mirziyoyev understands perfectly well who he is dealing with and how much Uzbeks are hated in Russia, considered people of the second or even third class.
Relations between Moscow and Tashkent are falling apart at the seams. Uzbekistan has officially accused the Russian authorities of mistreating its citizens. This is not about isolated incidents, but about systematic unauthorized inspections, humiliation, and even violence.
And here is another specific example that specifically concerns an Uzbek in Russia.
The authorities of Uzbekistan have not yet openly criticized Putin, but their actions already speak for themselves.
Russian fascists continue to deliberately construct a ring of enemies around themselves, because they are firmly and absolutely convinced that they have the right to humiliate and oppress other peoples.
An Uzbek is being persecuted in Moscow in one of the city's residential districts. So yes, Mirziyoyev in particular and Uzbekistan as a whole are showing their teeth. Tashkent is tired of enduring the abuses of the Russian pseudo-empire. The embassy of Uzbekistan in Moscow sent a note to the Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs requesting a comment on the brutal Oman raid at a migrant dormitory in Moscow. In short, Tashkent will not tolerate it any longer. There are some very telling things happening here, especially painful for Putin. In Uzbekistan, 40 foreign words have been replaced with Uzbek equivalents, according to the press service of the country's Academy of Sciences. This list in particular includes words like advance, iceberg, corridor, leader, password, challenge, screw, navigator, and others. And look how interesting this turns out to be. Yes, Shavkat Mirziyoyev came to Moscow for the parade. He even shook hands with Putin there. So shameful.
This is the official pre-parade formation of the ceremonial armed forces of the Republic of Uzbekistan.
But on the other hand, a parade is just a parade. But Mirziyoyev doesn't just travel to Moscow, he also goes to Azerbaijan to see Ilham Aliyev, Erdogan's best friend and a man who hates Putin with all his heart.
Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev and Uzbek President Shavkat Mirziyoyev opened the new building of Uzbekistan's embassy in Baku.
Well, you understand, this meeting wasn't really about opening the embassy for Aliyev. It was important to convey to Mirziyoyev, it's better to be friends with Baku and Ankara than with backward Moscow. Oh, I seem to be speaking in rhymes now. But Uzbekistan listened.
Turkey strengthens the Turkic direction while Moscow loses its last Central Asian ally. It blows the Russian world and Putin's ambitions.
And there's something else I want to highlight separately here. The armed forces of Uzbekistan, just for a moment, are among the top 20 strongest armies in the world, with funding of $2.8 billion a year.
The National Armed Forces of Uzbekistan must consistently maintain a high state of combat readiness due to the dynamic and rapidly changing modern world, as well as the ever-increasing threats and challenges to our national security.
Let me translate from diplomatic language to plain human language. So, we are no longer under Russia. We are ready to help Turkey and Azerbaijan tear that Moscow scoundrel apart like Tuzik with a hot water bottle. And Russia will definitely answer for all that trash it did to Uzbeks.
The scandal is gaining momentum. In Uzbekistan, people are demanding punishment for the Russian who called an Uzbek taxi driver a slave of the Russians. The country's Ministry of Foreign Affairs has already sent an official note of protest to Moscow. Tashkent reminds everyone, wherever citizens of Uzbekistan may be, they are under the protection of their state.
But as for Turkish President Erdogan, he is finishing off the bunker moth much more subtly on all fronts, and again with the potential involvement of Uzbekistan. This is very important, friends.
Turkey is once again uniting peoples and states around itself. President Erdogan calls for global UN reform, aims to reshape the world, and seeks presence everywhere he can make an impact.
To reshape the world is not just showing off or empty words from Erdogan. President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has long wanted to create a new regional military alliance, a strategic alternative to NATO right under Putin's nose.
Turkey, Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, and Uzbekistan are getting closer to creating the Great Turan. The Kremlin is losing influence in the region.
Oh, someone is already starting to get scared. So, to sum up, yes, it's true that not so long ago, Uzbekistan was under significant Kremlin influence, heavily dependent on the Kremlin. But that's already in the past. Mirziyoyev and in fact the entire Uzbek establishment understand that it's much more promising to be friends with Erdogan than with Putin, right?
Uzbekistan is winding down its dependence on Russia. While the Kremlin is bogged down in Ukraine, Tashkent is building bridges with Turkey and China.
And this is exactly the kind of betrayal that, in Putin's view, he simply cannot forgive Uzbekistan for. That's precisely why this whole story begins, where he demonstratively summons Mirziyoyev to St. Petersburg and tells fairy tales about how opening a nuclear power plant, this is a major step forward in terms of relations between Russia and Uzbekistan. Everyone understands perfectly well that now Putin will pressure and squeeze Uzbekistan in order to bring the country back into his orbit, especially after the defeat of Putin's forces in Armenia. And here is the most important question. Will Mirziyoyev hold his ground and continue to pursue his clear course? Will he really continue to openly maintain friendship and negotiations with Aliyev and Erdogan? And will he really be able, once again, not to fall under the influence of Putin's Russia? This is something to watch closely in the near future. And that's exactly what we'll be doing as part of the Vova project. We'll definitely see each other soon. Subscribe to my channel. Bye.